The night sky was a canvas of silent, twinkling stars. A peaceful scene, you might think. But beneath that cosmic calm, a silent revolution was underway. In the heart of the human fleet, there was no noise, no hurried chaos. Just the quiet, deliberate movement of shadows in space. Ship after ship, sleek and fast, slipped away from Earth's embrace without a single alarm or fanfare. No blaring sirens, no flashing warning lights. It was a calm, calculated exodus. Meanwhile, light years away, in the grand hall of the Alien Council, a seed of panic was beginning to sprout. The council members, beings of immense power, had always seen humans as predictable, a species easily controlled. They had underestimated them, fatally. Now the humans were gone, and nobody knew where. "This cannot be happening," whispered Zorath, one of the council leaders, his many eyes wide with disbelief. "They left without a single trace? How is that even possible?" Another council member, Grivak, scoffed, his voice sharp and cold. "They are clever, yes, but cleverness does not outmatch power. We will find them." But even as he spoke, a tiny, almost invisible signal flickered to life on his console. A ghost across the council's monitors. The humans weren't just leaving. They were sending a message. Far above the shrinking blue marble of Earth, Captain Elena of the human fleet watched her home recede. Her expression was calm, but her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and strategy. Every ship in her fleet moved in perfect, silent unison, invisible to the Council's vaunted sensors. They had trained for this moment for decades. Every maneuver, every escape route had been meticulously planned. Elena knew the Council would be in shock. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. They had banked on the Council's arrogance, their overconfidence. Humanity had always been the underdog, but not anymore. As the fleet navigated the asteroid belt near Mars, a flash of light appeared on the human screens. A Council scout ship, frantically trying to pick up their trail. But it was far too late. The humans had already anticipated its course. The scout's sensors swept an empty void, finding nothing. The human fleet, meanwhile, had already altered its trajectory, leaving a perfect ghost trail behind them, a trap of empty space. Back on the Council's homeworld, arguments erupted. "We must send the military, blockade them," one member shouted. "They're gone. They can't be stopped," yelled another. Zorath slammed his clawed hand on the table, the sound echoing through the hall. "We must understand. We must know why they left so quietly. Humans do not act without reason." On the human command ship, Elena tapped her fingers lightly on her control panel. The fleet was calm. The crew trusted her implicitly. They had mastered stealth, patience, and strategy, and the Council was about to learn that humans never leave quietly without a purpose. Suddenly, a new signal appeared, this one stronger, almost arrogant in its directness. The humans had sent it straight to the Council's heart, a challenge wrapped in a mystery. "We will not fight you," the message read, "but we demand the truth. Answer for your actions." The Council members froze. They had expected a retreat, not a confrontation. For centuries, humans had been subservient, overlooked, even mocked. But now, from a position of untraceable strength, they were taking control of the narrative. In her ship, Elena monitored the Council's panicked communications. "They're scared," she said softly, "exactly as they should be." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Rao, leaned in. "What if they attack? Send their fleets after us?" Elena shook her head. "They won't. They'll hesitate. Our quiet departure forces them to think, to question. We're making them answer for their arrogance without spilling a single drop of blood." Outside, the stars stretched into an endless abyss. Earth was now just a distant blue dot. The humans moved with purpose, silent, but unstoppable. They were leaving quietly, yes, but every silent moment of their journey carried immense weight, a message that would echo across the galaxy. As the human fleet vanished into the deep darkness of space, the Council's alarm bells rang in a useless, chaotic symphony. Zorath barked orders, but it was futile. The humans were gone. But more than gone, they were in control. Captain Elena turned to her crew, her voice calm and steady. Remember this. We leave quietly, but we act loudly. They will hear our voice soon enough. The night sky remained calm, but for the first time, the galaxy trembled at the quiet, unyielding power of humanity. The council chamber was pure chaos. Imagine a grand, shimmering hall, but instead of dignified debate, you have a cacophony of sharp, metallic voices shouting over each other. Alien leaders, all sharp angles and glowing eyes, were losing their minds. And why? Because the humans were gone. Vanished. Poof. On the big screens flickering around the hall, there was nothing but empty space. No human ships, no colonies, no trail, just gone. Zorath, the oldest and most feared member of the council, slammed his massive, clawed hand on his console. The sound echoed like a crack of thunder. "This cannot be," he roared, his many eyes wide with disbelief. "They left? And without any warning?" "Oh, they did more than just leave," a sleeker alien named Grivak hissed, his voice like grinding metal. He gestured dramatically toward a holographic screen floating in the center of the room. There, glowing softly, was a symbol every being in the galaxy recognized. Humanity's signature. It was simple, silent, and right now, it felt like the loudest thing in the universe. Zorath stared at it, a low growl building in his throat. "The humans. They are daring us," he muttered. His eyes narrowed, focusing on the insolent little symbol. "We have underestimated them for far too long. They are not ordinary. Not anymore." Meanwhile, light years away, in the silent, velvet blackness of deep space, Captain Elena watched the whole scene unfold on her own monitor. Thanks to some very clever intercepted signals, she had a front-row seat to the Council's panic attack. Every argument, every frantic gesture, every flicker of fear, she saw it all. A faint, knowing smile touched her lips. Humans had always been the underdogs, the quiet ones in the corner. But now, all that patience, all that quiet intelligence, was finally paying off. "Ma'am," her first officer, Lieutenant Rao, said from his station, his voice calm but his eyes bright. He pointed to his scanner display. "They're trying to trace us. They've deployed fleets, but our stealth modules are holding perfectly. They're chasing ghosts." Elena's eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction. "Exactly as planned," she said, her voice a low hum of command. "Let them scramble. Let them panic. Humans don't chase blindly. We set the board. We control the game." Back on the Council planet, Grivak was practically vibrating with fury. "We must act. Send the fleets. Block every known escape route. We cannot allow them to simply evade us." But Zorath surprisingly shook his head. His voice was calm, but carried a deadly weight. "No. Chasing them blindly is exactly what they want. It plays right into their hands. They want us to act in haste. They want us to make mistakes." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the panicked assembly. "We wait. We observe. Then and only then we strike. If necessary." But the Council was a hornet's nest. They couldn't grasp it. Why would the humans just leave, without a fight, without even a demand? "They are mocking us," one member shrieked. "They have no respect for the authority of this council." "They are not mocking us," Zorath corrected, his voice cutting through the noise. "They are teaching us. A lesson in patience, observation, and strategy, qualities we seem to have forgotten. And they are using our own weaknesses against us, perfectly." Far from the chaos, humanity's plan continued its silent, graceful dance. They weren't attacking. They didn't need to. Instead, they began subtle maneuvers. Small, almost undetectable signals were sent out, gently nudging the alien communication channels. Suddenly, their fleet started appearing in the wrong locations on their own maps. Critical sensors would fail at just the right moment, showing false positions. The humans weren't firing a single shot, but with every move, they made the council look like fools, sowing confusion and doubt within their ranks. On her command deck, Elena stood with her arms crossed, a picture of calm control. "They believe power is in their ships, their weapons, their sheer numbers," she mused, more to herself than to her crew. But they're forgetting something fundamental. Humans are smarter. We win without firing a shot. Her crew exchanged proud, determined glances. They had trained their whole lives for this. Decades of silent preparation, now unfolding like a perfect piece of clockwork. Every ship had its role. Every soldier had their orders. Nothing was left to chance. On the Council world, Zorath's voice grew colder, harder. We will respond, not with force, but with answers. Humans are demanding something from us, and it's not a battle. We cannot ignore them. But what do they know? What is their ultimate plan? A younger council member, trembling slightly, whispered, "Sir, maybe the humans are preparing something we can't see." "Exactly," Zorath said grimly. "They hide in plain sight. They leave quietly, but every single action has meaning. We must be ready. And we must learn. Before it is too late." Just then, another message arrived from Elena's ship. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a simple, direct, and utterly haunting statement of human resolve. The words materialized in the air before the council. "We left quietly, but we are not weak. You will answer for your actions. We will be watching." The chamber erupted again. Some wanted to ignore it, to pretend it wasn't happening. Others screamed for an immediate, overwhelming attack. But underneath all the noise, they were united by one thing: a deep, chilling fear of the species they had never bothered to truly understand. Elena leaned back in her command chair, a deep sense of satisfaction settling over her. They had done it. They had forced the council to look in the mirror. The aliens' arrogance, their overconfidence, that had always been their greatest weakness, and the humans had just turned it into a perfect trap. Far above, in the profound quiet of space, the human fleet moved with silent, unshakable purpose. They were leaving, yes, but they were leaving behind a ripple of power that was shaking the galaxy to its core. Every move, every pause, every calculated step told a story that was now impossible to ignore. Humans were not to be underestimated. Humans were in control. And the frantic, confused council had absolutely no idea what was coming next. In the silent, endless dark beyond the council's watchful eyes, the human fleet moved like ghosts. Inside there was no peace, only a quiet, focused energy. Every officer, every crew member, acted with a precision born from decades of rehearsal. Captain Elena stood on the command deck, her gaze fixed on a holographic galaxy. "They think we left quietly by chance," she said, her voice a calm wave of authority. "They don't see the decades of preparation behind us." Lieutenant Rao, leaning over his console, looked up. "Decades? They must know we're clever, but decades?" A faint smile touched Elena's lips. "Not clever enough. We've planned this in the shadows while the council dismissed us as weak. We observed, we studied, we waited, and now every piece is falling into place." This was the culmination of a long, hidden story. For generations, humanity's brightest minds, scientists, engineers, strategists, had worked in secret. Every piece of technology, every alliance, every fleet movement was meticulously mapped out. Humans had woven a secret web of resources across the stars, completely invisible to the council. A small holographic map flickered to life before Elena, showing tiny dots, hidden bases, secret supply stations, and ghost communication hubs. "We have eyes and ears everywhere," she declared. "They can't hide from us anymore." Meanwhile, back in the Grand Council chamber, confusion was turning to panic. The council's leader, Zorath, paced anxiously. "Humans don't do anything randomly. They are executing a plan. But what plan? What could they possibly be preparing for?" Grivak, another council member, slammed his fist on a console, his voice trembling with frustration. "We've monitored them for centuries, every colony, every ship. And yet, we have no idea what they're doing." Zorath stopped, his eyes glinting with a dawning horror. "That's exactly the point. Humans are patient. They wait. And while we rush and panic, they calculate. They've anticipated every move we're about to make." Aboard the human flagship, Elena initiated a series of brilliant, subtle maneuvers. The fleet splintered into smaller groups, dancing in unpredictable patterns. Some ships fainted towards distant planets while others vanished behind the glare of stars, becoming invisible to Council sensors. Each movement was a calculated message, a quiet taunt, a masterclass in foresight. "They won't attack directly?" Rao asked, watching the screens with awe. Elena shook her head. "No, this isn't about fighting. It's about proving that we can't be underestimated. We're forcing them to react, to question everything without firing a single shot. Their fear, their confusion, that is our weapon." The council chamber erupted into chaos. "We must attack," one member yelled. "We must show strength." Zorath's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "No. True strength isn't in weapons. It's in understanding. Humans are showing us something we forgot long ago. Patience, strategy, intelligence. They are teaching us a lesson." A young officer approached Elena. "Captain, they're tracking our movements, but they're completely lost. They can't comprehend our strategy." Elena nodded, a look of grim satisfaction on her face. "Exactly. Let them chase shadows. We humans have always known how to move quietly, but this time every shadow has a purpose. They are about to realize we control this game now." Deep in the void, the human plan unfolded flawlessly. Hidden supply ships activated, secret relays hummed to life, and bases once thought dormant roared with activity. Years of preparation had led to this moment, and the Council's arrogance had made them blind. Staring at the star maps, Zorath's eyes narrowed. They are everywhere, and yet nowhere. They are silent, yet their message is deafening. Humans, they are not just clever. They are unstoppable. Elena smiled, her gaze fixed on the star-dusted path ahead. "They'll learn soon enough," she whispered to the cosmos. "We leave quietly, yes, but every step of our journey forces them to face the truth. Humans are not to be controlled. Humans will not be ignored. Humans are finally in charge of their own destiny." As the fleet sailed deeper into the darkness, a silent message echoed across the galaxy. Humans have waited, humans have planned, and humans have finally arrived. Not with war, but with a power far greater than the Council could ever imagine. The Council chambers were thick with an unnerving silence. Days had passed since the humans vanished, but their phantom presence lingered everywhere. Unseen, unpredictable, and utterly unstoppable. The alien leaders, accustomed to galactic dominance, found themselves sleepless, haunted by shadows. Every system they scanned, every fleet they dispatched, it was as if the humans were already there, one step ahead. Zorath, a being of immense power, slammed his claws on the command table, the impact echoing his frustration. "They mock us," he roared. "They're crippling our systems without firing a single shot. How is this even possible?" Grivak, his second-in-command, hissed in agreement, his voice sharp with a frustration that bordered on humiliation. "They hide in the void, strike like ghosts, and disappear before our sensors even register a blip. It's infuriating." Meanwhile, deep in the velvet darkness of space, Captain Elena's fleet drifted like a predatory shadow. Today was the day. Today they would deliver the first real proof of human power. A strike designed not to destroy but to dismantle the Council's arrogance piece by piece. On her holographic panel, Elena's fingers danced, issuing a cascade of silent commands. Tiny stealth drones detached from each ship, slipping past the Council's sophisticated sensor nets like whispers in the dark. Their target, the Council's communication satellites. In an instant, the once secure channels dissolved into digital noise. Fleets received phantom orders, sending them on wild goose chases across the galaxy. On the bridge of Elena's flagship, Officer Rao stared at the unfolding chaos, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Captain, they're in a full-blown panic. The Council has no idea what's happening." Elena's reply was calm, a stark contrast to the pandemonium they were witnessing. "Exactly. This is the first strike. Not with weapons, but with intellect. Humans win by being smarter, not stronger. Every move we make forces them to confront their own hubris." Back on the Council's capital world, alarms blared a symphony of failure. Screens flickered, displaying fleets in impossible locations. "It can't be!" One council member cried out. Our ships are everywhere and nowhere at once. They're inside our networks, but we can't see them. Zorath's eyes narrowed to slits, a dawning horror in his gaze. They've anticipated our every move. They are controlling our actions without laying a single hand on us. Humans, they aren't just clever. They are something else entirely. This first strike was subtle, yet its effect was devastating. Communication lines between fleets and their command bases were severed. Ships meant to support each other now moved in a state of utter confusion. Simple human drones had sown chaos across an empire, and the Council was left grasping at straws, unable to comprehend the how or the why. From her command deck, Elena watched the masterful chaos unfold. They will understand soon, she said, her voice a soft murmur. The first strike is only the beginning. Humans may leave quietly, but every action carries a clear message. We are not to be underestimated. A furious council member turned on Zorath. We must retaliate. Hunt them down before they slip away completely. Zorath slowly shook his head, his voice now cold and measured. No. That is precisely what they want us to do. If we act in haste, we fail. The humans are teaching us a lesson in patience by exposing our every weakness. Rao turned to his captain. Will they ever get it? He asked quietly. They will, Elena affirmed. But not yet. Humans always control the tempo. Every strike, every pause, every silence. It's all part of the plan. Today we humiliate, tomorrow we demand answers. As the council scrambled to regain control, the humans executed their final move. The drones transmitted a single, unified message, bypassing all firewalls and appearing directly in the council chamber. It was simple, direct, and impossible to ignore. We strike without anger, without war, yet our power is clear. You cannot hide from the truth. Answer for your actions. An absolute silence fell over the room. The council members stared at the glowing words, their arrogance melting away, replaced by a chilling, unfamiliar fear. For the first time, they understood. Humans weren't just another species to be conquered. They were strategic, patient, and untouchable. A faint smile touched Elena's lips. The first strike is complete, she declared, and we haven't even begun to show them our true strength. The council remained paralyzed, their grand plans unraveling as invisible hands countered their every move. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, a silent, subtle force of chaos that had brought an empire to its knees without firing a single weapon. As the fleet slipped back into the endless night, a new truth echoed across the galaxy. The human campaign had begun, not with war, but with a power far greater than the Council could have ever imagined. The first strike was over. But the war of minds had only just begun. The Council chamber was pure chaos. Every grand strategy, every powerful fleet at their command, had been utterly dismantled by the humans' subtle, precise strikes. Screens flickered with phantom data, communications were hopelessly garbled, and entire squadrons veered off course, chasing ghosts. Zorath, the council leader, slammed his claws on the central command table, his multiple eyes burning with rage. Enough. We cannot operate like this. They are everywhere and yet nowhere. Every move we make, they anticipate. How do we fight an enemy that refuses to fight? Grivak, another council member, trembled, his voice thick with frustration. They don't attack us directly. They manipulate, they confuse, they humiliate us, and all without firing a single shot. Meanwhile, light years away in the silent depths of space, Captain Elena Petrova watched the Council's desperation unfold on her main view screen. They're panicking, she said softly to her bridge crew. Exactly as we predicted, humans don't need overwhelming firepower to win a war. Fear, confusion, and intelligence are our sharpest weapons. Lieutenant Rao leaned over his console, his eyes darting across streams of data. Captain, they're sending fleets in every direction. Some are even turning back, convinced their homeworlds are under threat. Elena nodded, a ghost of a smile on her lips. Let them chase shadows. Let them exhaust themselves. Every reactive, thoughtless action they take is a quiet victory for us. Patience, strategy, precision. This is the human way of war. Back on the Council's capital planet, the chamber erupted into arguments. We must launch an all-out assault on their last known coordinates, one member bellowed. No. Zorath's voice sliced through the noise, sharp and commanding. We have been completely outsmarted. We must observe. We must learn before we make another move. The humans are not just being clever. They are teaching us a lesson. In the following days, the Council tried everything. They dispatched cloaked spies, deployed sensor nets, even attempted to flood the network with their own disinformation. But it was useless. The humans were always one step ahead. Every trap sprung empty. Every gambit failed. In the vastness of space, the human fleet moved like a phantom tide. Small, agile flotillas would appear on long-range sensors for a moment, only to vanish. Hidden supply depots and dormant bases flickered to life, their energy signatures masked and gone before the Council could get a lock. Each move was deliberate, calculated to force the Council into a panicked reaction without ever revealing the full picture. Rao turned to his captain, a look of awe on his face. Do you think they'll ever figure out our grand strategy? They might try, Elena replied calmly. But we control the tempo of this conflict. We decide when and how the Council perceives our true strength. Today, they scramble. Tomorrow, they will answer for their arrogance. On the Council world, a dignitary finally screamed what everyone was thinking. We cannot let this continue. They are making absolute fools of us. Zorath's eyes, however, now held a dark, chilling calm. Yes, he said, his voice barely a whisper. And that is precisely the point. The humans leave quietly, but their actions force us to see our own profound weaknesses. They are compelling us to confront the truth, whether we like it or not. The humans never attacked directly. They simply moved, calculated, and disrupted. They left a galaxy-spanning trail of confusion that whipped the Council into a frenzy. Every fleet sent in haste arrived at an empty patch of space. Every advanced sensor was turned against its masters, feeding them lies. Every urgent command was subtly, untraceably misread. And while the Council tore itself apart, humanity's forces remained calm, focused, and unshakable. They had prepared for this moment for decades. Every hidden base, every secret supply line, every highly trained officer was a piece in a grand, intricate puzzle, one the Council was nowhere near comprehending. Elena keyed in one final system-wide broadcast for the day. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a supernova. Your fleets may scramble, your sensors may fail, but your arrogance is your greatest weakness. Humans leave quietly, but our presence is felt everywhere. Now, answer for your actions. A profound silence followed the message. The Council members stared at their dark screens, their simmering panic now boiling over into cold dread. For the first time, they truly understood. Humans didn't need to fight a conventional war to control its outcome. Every subtle maneuver, every quiet strategy, was more than enough to bring an empire to its knees. A faint smile touched Elena's lips. The Council is scrambling, exactly as planned. We humans may leave quietly, but we act decisively. And the next move is ours. Far above, in the serene quiet of space, the human fleet continued its silent, inexorable journey. The galaxy had begun to change, and humans were at the very center of that change. Calm, precise, and more powerful than anyone had ever dared to imagine. The Council chamber was thick with tension. Every single member stared at the glowing message that had just appeared from the humans. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand for surrender. It was a challenge, and it shook the very foundation of their arrogance. Zorath's claws clenched into a tight fist. They force us to answer, without firing a single shot, he growled, his voice a low rumble. How can mere humans possess such power? Grivak's many eyes darted nervously around the room. They have outsmarted us at every turn. Our fleets, our vast networks of spies, our superior technology, all rendered useless. They move like ghosts, strike with surgical precision, and remain utterly untouchable. Far beyond the Council's world, Captain Elena stood on the command deck of her flagship, the picture of calm and composure. Today, she told her crew, her voice steady and clear, we do more than disrupt or confuse. Today we demand the truth. The Council will answer for their actions. The humans had meticulously prepared for this exact moment. Their strikes had been subtle, their moves precise, their strategy flawless. But now it was time to confront the Council directly, not with weapons, but with presence, intelligence, and undeniable moral authority. A holographic projection of Captain Elena materialized in the center of the council chamber. Every member froze. The image was calm, collected, and impossible to ignore. Council of the Galaxy, Elena's voice echoed through the grand hall, commanding and unwavering. We have observed your actions for decades. You have consistently underestimated humans. You have ignored our contributions. And now we are here to demand answers. Whispers rippled across the council floor. No one dared to speak out of turn. Humans had never done this before. They had always been quiet, patient, but never bold enough to confront the council so openly. Zorath stepped forward, struggling to maintain his composure and control. And what exactly do you demand, human? Speak carefully. Elena's eyes gleamed with a quiet fire. We demand honesty. We demand accountability. You have acted in arrogance for far too long. You have underestimated us, oppressed our colonies, and ignored our warnings. Now you will answer. Not because we threaten you, but because your own actions demand it. A heavy silence fell over the council. Some members seethed with anger, others trembled with fear, but all were forced to listen. Humans were no longer just observers. They were becoming arbiters of justice. They were clever, patient, and untouchable, and now they held the moral high ground. Grivak muttered under his breath, They are fearless. How can such small beings command such authority? They are not small, Zorath replied quietly, almost to himself. They are powerful, more than we ever understood. Their power lies in their patience, their intelligence, their strategy, and their unity. And now we must face the consequences of our arrogance. Elena's voice resonated through the chamber one last time. We leave quietly, yes, but we act loudly in principle and in strategy. The galaxy will watch as humans force truth and justice without violence. You may have power, but you lack understanding. That is our advantage. The council members looked at one another, a new mixture of fear and respect in their eyes. For the first time, they realized that humans didn't need massive fleets or devastating weapons to dominate. Humans could control outcomes with intellect, patience, and strategy alone. Outside, the human fleet continued its silent, graceful glide through the void of space. Ships held perfect formation, hidden bases across the galaxy activated, and supply lines hummed with quiet, efficient power. Humans had made the first move. They had forced the council to scramble, and now they had confronted them with the simple, unavoidable truth. Zorath exhaled slowly, his many eyes fixed on the holographic image of Elena. Humans, he said, his voice now calm but edged with a grudging respect. You have shown us that power is more than just weapons. You have forced us to see our own mistakes. Elena simply inclined her head. That is all we ask. Answer for your actions, and perhaps the galaxy can move forward together. Refuse, and the consequences will reach far beyond your arrogance. And with that, the projection vanished. A profound silence lingered in the chamber. The council had been forced to confront a truth they could no longer ignore. Humans had acted quietly, but the impact of their presence, their strategy, and their moral authority was deafening. The final confrontation was over, for now. But the council had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humans were clever, humans were patient, and humans were a force that could never be underestimated again. And far away, Captain Elena's fleet continued its silent journey through the stars, leaving behind a galaxy that would never look at humans the same way again. Scene opens on a vast, silent council chamber. Alien beings sit stunned. The council chamber was plunged into an unnerving silence. The final confrontation had ended, not with a bang, but with a whisper that shook the very foundations of galactic power. No fleets were destroyed, no planets were glassed. Yet every member of the council sat in a state of stunned disbelief. The humans had come, delivered their ultimatum, and left. But their presence lingered like a ghost in the machine, their demand for justice echoing louder than any superweapon. Zorath, the council's imposing leader, leaned back, his sharp claws resting heavily on the polished table. "They leave quietly," he rumbled, his voice a low growl that barely broke the silence. "But their impact, it resonates louder than any act of war. We have never faced beings like this before." Across from him, Grivak's multifaceted eyes blinked rapidly, reflecting a cocktail of fear, respect, and utter confusion. "They forced us to answer," he chirped nervously. "Not by force, but by sheer intelligence and patience. How can a species so insignificant, so physically small, wield such immense power over us?" Miles away, aboard the flagship of the human fleet, Captain Elena Vance watched the star-strewn void from her command deck. Her fleet moved like a phantom through the cosmos, silent, disciplined, and utterly unstoppable. She turned to her crew, a confident smile gracing her lips. "We leave quietly," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But our message is crystal clear. Humans are no longer underestimated. Humans are no longer ignored." As she spoke, the fleet dispatched one final holographic message directly into the heart of the council chamber. A shimmering image of Captain Vance appeared, her gaze direct and unwavering. This time the message was simple, devoid of threats, yet filled with an undeniable authority that chilled the council members to their core. "We came quietly. We acted silently. But the truth cannot be hidden forever. The council must answer for its actions. Learn from this moment. Underestimate humans no longer. We leave for now, but know this. The galaxy will always be watching, and we will always act when necessary. The future belongs not to the aggressor, but to those who prepare, those who wait, and those who think beyond the simple application of force. Humanity has begun its true journey. And this is only the beginning." The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving a profound silence in its wake. The council members stared at one another, the dawning realization hitting them like a physical blow. The humans had already won, not through violence, but through superior strategy, unwavering intelligence, and a moral high ground they couldn't even begin to comprehend. Zorath's voice was a mere whisper, laced with something akin to reverence. "They have changed everything. We cannot undo what they have done today. Humans, they are no ordinary beings." Grivak nodded slowly, his many eyes fixed on the empty space where the human captain had stood. "We have seen their power, their patience, their unity, and now we must acknowledge it, or face consequences even greater than what we've witnessed today." Back in the deep black, the human fleet continued its silent voyage. Hidden bases, cloaked stations, and subtle strategic movements across the galaxy ensured that humanity was prepared for whatever the future might hold. Every step of their journey carried a lesson, every quiet maneuver a stark reminder. Humans were in control, even when they were invisible. Lieutenant Rao, Elena's second-in-command, approached her on the bridge. "Captain," he asked, "do you think the council truly understands the message?" Elena shook her head, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. "They will, in time. It's how humans have always operated. We leave quietly, but our presence is felt everywhere. The galaxy will remember today. Every council, every species, will learn that humanity is not a force to be trifled with. Our message has been delivered, but our journey has only just begun." And as the fleet melted into the infinite darkness of space, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. A new truth had been etched into the stars. Humans were clever, patient, and unstoppable. They had acted quietly, yet their power was undeniable. They had demanded justice without spilling a single drop of blood, and the echoes of their actions, the quiet ripple of their victory, would resonate across the cosmos for all time. The age of silent observation had ended. The legend of humanity, strategic, intelligent, and unbreakable, was only just beginning. The human fleet was gone, vanished from the Council's long-range sensors, leaving a void not just in space, but in the stunned silence of the Galactic Assembly. The day humans showed their true strength was the day they disappeared. But far from the Council's prying eyes, humanity was anything but idle. Across the spiral arm, hidden bases deep within nebulae hummed with quiet, focused activity. Secret stations disguised as rogue asteroids monitored the endless dance of the stars. Small, stealthy ships, ghosts in the machine, moved silently through uncharted sectors, their crews the silent watchers of a new galactic era. On the bridge of the flagship, the Odyssey, Captain Elena Petrova stood, her silhouette framed by the vast, star-strewn void. The view from her command chair was a tapestry of distant suns and swirling cosmic dust. She didn't look at the tactical displays or the status reports. She simply gazed out, lost in the immensity of it all. "We showed the Council our strength," she said, her voice a soft murmur that carried across the hushed bridge. "But that was just the opening move. This is only the beginning." Her words hung in the air, a promise and a warning. "The galaxy has changed, and we must be ready for whatever comes next." Standing beside her, Lieutenant Kenji Rao, his face still young and etched with awe, turned to look at her. His eyes were wide, reflecting the starfield before them. "Captain," he asked, his voice barely a whisper, Do you think the other civilizations will notice us now?" A faint, knowing smile touched Elena's lips. It was a smile that held the weight of untold calculations and carefully laid plans. "Oh, they already have, Kenji," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "Some will fear us. They'll see our sudden silence as a threat, a coiled serpent ready to strike. Some will respect us. They'll see our power and our restraint as a sign of wisdom. But all of them," she paused, letting the weight of her next words settle, "all of them will watch, and all of them will wonder, what are the humans capable of next?" Meanwhile, on the Council's homeworld, the opulent chambers still echoed with the shock of their recent humiliation. The leaders who once saw humans as a minor, boisterous race were now scrambling to understand the new balance of power. Zorath, the Council's ancient and once unflappable chairman, addressed his stunned colleagues. His voice, usually booming with authority, was now low, tight and determined. "They act quietly," he rasped, "but their presence is everywhere. We can feel it. A shadow that has fallen over everything we thought we knew. We will not underestimate humans ever again. We must learn from them, or we risk falling even further behind." Back in the cold, silent dark of deep space, humanity was doing what it did best, preparing. Their fleet, now a decentralized network of autonomous flotillas, moved like shadows in the night. They struck only when necessary, a surgical strike against a pirate haven, a quiet rescue of a stranded vessel, but mostly they observed. They gathered data, analyzed threats, and trained relentlessly for a future that was still unwritten. Every action, every quiet maneuver carried the immense weight of their species' survival and destiny. Then one day something new appeared on Elena's main screen. A small, almost imperceptible signal, flickering at the very edge of their sensor range. It was faint, a whisper against the background roar of the cosmos. The Odyssey's advanced AI worked for hours to decode it. The message was simple, a mathematical sequence that could only come from an intelligent source. It originated from a distant, previously unknown civilization, one so far away they hadn't even been on the Council's charts. They had been alerted not by the fleet's power, but by its sudden, coordinated disappearance. The ripple had reached them. The galaxy was not just watching, it was starting to reach out. A glimmer of triumph sparked in Elena's eyes. She leaned forward, her voice a whisper that felt like a shout in the silent bridge. "The game has changed." The humans had left the Council stage, but in doing so, they had stepped onto a much, much larger one. We are no longer hidden. Every step we take now, every quiet move shapes the future of this galaxy, and we will always be ready. As the Odyssey and its sister ships melted back into the impenetrable darkness between the stars, a single, unspoken truth began to echo from one end of the galaxy to the other. Humans are patient, humans are clever, and humans are watching. Quietly, always. And now it seemed they were unstoppable. The galaxy held its breath and waited, and in the silence the humans prepared. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.